The hospital corridor lights flickered overhead. Marcus's hand trembled as he signed his name on the marriage contract. Across from him sat a young woman in a wheelchair, her face pale as snow, eyes hollow and distant. Her family had promised to cover every cent of his daughter's surgery, $300,000, if he agreed to care for her for 1 year. "You won't regret this, will you?" Her voice was so small, he thought he'd imagined it. Marcus didn't know that his answer would change both their lives forever. Marcus wiped the grease from his hands with an old handkerchief before folding it carefully and tucking it into his back pocket. The fabric was worn thin, embroidered with faded blue flowers his wife had stitched years ago. He did this after every shift at the welding shop, cleaned his hands with that same handkerchief, as if the ritual could keep some part of her close. The apartment was on the 3rd floor of a building that had seen better days. Grace was 7 now, small for her age, with her mother's dark curls and a smile that could break his heart. Tonight she was still awake, sitting at the fold-out table with a coloring book. "You're up late," Marcus said. "Couldn't sleep. Mrs. Patterson said I have to stay inside during recess again." Marcus felt something tighten in his chest. The school nurse had called him twice this month. Grace got tired too easily. Sometimes her lips turned a faint shade of blue. The cardiologist had explained it in terms Marcus barely understood. Congenital heart defect. Surgery was necessary, but expensive. $300,000. Marcus had gone to 4 banks. Each one had looked at his credit score and politely shown him the door. The night Grace collapsed, Marcus was cleaning office buildings downtown. His phone rang at 10:43. Mrs. Patterson's voice was shaking, telling him Grace had fallen and wouldn't wake up properly. The doctor was direct. "We need to operate within the next 2 weeks, maybe sooner." Marcus sat in the hospital chapel for an hour, hands clasped, staring at a wooden cross. His phone rang. Unknown number. "Is this Marcus Hayes?" The voice was female, older, polished. "My name is Helen Crawford. I have a proposition that might interest you. It concerns your daughter's medical expenses." They met the next evening at a coffee shop downtown. Helen Crawford didn't waste time. "I'll pay for your daughter's surgery, all of it." "Plus $20,000. Marcus stared at her. "What's the catch?" "My daughter was in an accident 6 months ago. She's paralyzed from the waist down. She needs care, constant supervision." Helen pulled out a folder. "A contract marriage. 1 year. You'll live in our home, care for Elena, and maintain appearances. In return, every medical expense for your daughter will be covered immediately." Marcus opened the folder with numb fingers. The numbers were clear enough. $300,000. Guaranteed. "Why?" he asked. "That's not your concern." Helen's expression was unreadable. "What matters is that this benefits both parties. Your daughter lives. My daughter has care." Marcus thought about Grace's face, pale against the hospital sheets, struggling to breathe. "I need to think about it." Helen placed a business card on the table. "You have until tomorrow evening. One more thing. Elena doesn't know the full terms. As far as she's concerned, you're a volunteer caregiver. I'd appreciate your discretion." Marcus looked at the card. Then he made the call. The signing happened at the hospital. Elena sat in her wheelchair, silent, staring out the window. It was only at the very end, when Marcus had finished signing, that she turned to him. "You won't regret this, will you?" Her voice was barely a whisper. Marcus looked at her, really looked, for the first time. She was younger than expected, maybe late 20s, with dark hair and skin so pale it seemed translucent. "I don't know," he answered honestly. Elena's lips curved slightly. "At least you're honest." Grace's surgery was scheduled for the following week. Everything was arranged. That night, after Grace fell asleep, Marcus stood by the window and looked out at the city lights. In his pocket, The embroidered handkerchief felt heavier than usual. Sarah would have hated this, but Sarah wasn't here, and Grace was. Marcus started packing their things. He didn't know that across town. Elena was lying awake, her legs moving slightly beneath the covers where no one could see. The Crawford house sat behind iron gates in a neighborhood where the lawns were maintained by professionals, and the mailboxes were all the same, tasteful black. Marcus pulled up the driveway in his 15-year-old truck, acutely aware of how it looked next to the Mercedes in the garage. Helen met him at the door with a set of instructions printed on cream-colored stationery. Elena's schedule was divided into 30-minute blocks: 8 o'clock breakfast, 9 o'clock physical therapy exercises, 10 o'clock reading time, lunch at noon. The list went on, accounting for every hour until 8 in the evening. "Your room is on the second floor, east wing," Helen said, leading him through a foyer with marble floors and a chandelier that probably cost more than his entire apartment building. "Elena's is directly across the hall. You'll hear if she needs anything during the night." Marcus followed her up a curved staircase, his boots loud against the hardwood. The house smelled like expensive candles and furniture polish, nothing like the smell of welding fumes and Mrs. Patterson's lavender sachets he'd grown used to. "One more thing," Helen said, stopping outside a closed door. "My son Ethan handles the family business. He's often here. He can be particular about household matters. It's best to simply follow the schedule and avoid unnecessary conversation." She opened the door without knocking. Elena sat in her wheelchair by the window, backlit by afternoon sun. She didn't turn around. "Elena, darling, Marcus is here. He'll be taking care of you from now on." Helen's voice had shifted into something artificially bright. "Marcus, I'll leave you two to get acquainted. Dinner is at 6. Don't be late." The door closed behind her with a soft click. Marcus stood there, unsure what to say to the woman he'd technically married 3 days ago. Elena remained motionless, her attention fixed on whatever lay beyond the glass. "I'm Marcus," he finally said. Then felt stupid. She knew that. "I know who you are." Her voice was flat. "You're the one who needed money." The bluntness of it stung, but Marcus couldn't argue. "Yeah, I needed money. For your daughter." Elena still hadn't looked at him. "She's 7. Heart condition. Surgery next week." Marcus felt something cold settle in his chest. "How do you know that?" "My mother is thorough." Elena's hand moved slightly on the armrest of her wheelchair. "She researched you. Background check, financial records, everything. She wanted to make sure you were desperate enough." "Desperate enough for what?" Elena finally turned to face him. Up close, Marcus could see dark circles under her eyes, like she hadn't slept properly in weeks. To not ask questions? Before Marcus could respond, footsteps sounded in the hallway. Heavy, purposeful. The door opened without warning. The man who entered was maybe 35, dressed in a suit despite being at home. He had Elena's dark hair, but none of her fragility. Everything about him seemed calculated. The way he moved, the way his eyes assessed Marcus in one sweep. "So you're the caregiver," the man said. Not a question. "I'm Ethan Crawford. This is my family's home. My sister's care is your only concern here. Nothing else. Are we clear?" Marcus had dealt with men like this before, the kind who measured worth in dollars and saw everyone else as either useful or irrelevant. "We're clear." Ethan's gaze moved to Elena. "How are you feeling today?" "The same as yesterday," Elena said. "The same as every day." Something flickered across Ethan's face. Impatience, maybe, or frustration. "The doctor said positive attitude matters." "You might try harder." He left as abruptly as he'd arrived. Marcus heard his footsteps receding down the hall, then a door closing somewhere below. "That's my brother," Elena said, returning her attention to the window. "He's protective." That what we're calling it? The corner of Elena's mouth twitched, not quite a smile. You can go now. I don't need anything until dinner. But Marcus didn't move. Something about the whole situation felt wrong. The way Helen had emphasized discretion. The way Ethan had looked at his sister, not with concern, but with something closer to surveillance. What really happened? Marcus asked. The accident. Car crash. Elena's voice was carefully neutral. 6 months ago, I was driving home from work, lost control. The car went off the road. And you've been paralyzed since then. Yes. Marcus studied her profile against the afternoon light. Okay. He didn't believe her. Couldn't say why exactly, just a feeling in his gut. But he turned and left the room, closing the door quietly behind him. Grace's surgery was scheduled for Thursday morning. Marcus had permission to leave for the day, with the understanding that he'd return by evening. He arrived at the hospital before dawn, when the waiting room was still empty, except for a janitor mopping floors. The surgery took 6 hours. Marcus sat in the same plastic chair the entire time, his phone off, Sarah's handkerchief clutched in his hand. When the surgeon finally appeared, still in scrubs, Marcus stood so quickly he felt dizzy. She did great, the surgeon said. Better than expected. Her heart is going to be strong now, really strong. Marcus had to sit back down. His hands were shaking. When can I see her? She's in recovery. Give it another hour. Grace looked tiny in the hospital bed, surrounded by monitors and tubes. But her color was better already, her breathing steady. Marcus took her hand carefully, afraid to disturb anything. Hey, baby, he whispered. Grace's eyes fluttered open, unfocused from anesthesia. Daddy? I'm here. You did so good. It's all over now. Am I fixed? Her voice was small, slurred. Yeah, baby, you're fixed. Grace smiled and drifted back to sleep. Marcus sat beside her bed until the nurses made him leave, promising he could return in the morning. It was almost midnight when he got back to the Crawford house. He let himself in quietly, intending to go straight to his room. But a light was on under Elena's door. Marcus knocked softly. It's me, just letting you know I'm back. No response. He was about to leave when he heard something, a thud, muffled, followed by what might have been a sharp intake of breath. Elena! Marcus tried the handle, locked. Are you okay? I'm fine, came her voice, strained. Go away. Marcus hesitated. Then, I'm coming in. Don't. But he'd already shouldered the door open. The lock was flimsy, more decorative than functional. The sight that met him made him stop cold. Elena was standing, not in her wheelchair, but standing. One hand braced against the nightstand, the other pressed to her mouth. Her legs were shaking but definitely, absolutely bearing her weight. They stared at each other for a long moment. Close the door, Elena said finally. Marcus did, his mind racing. You're not paralyzed. Brilliant observation. Elena let go of the nightstand, taking 2 unsteady steps before grabbing the back of a chair. Are you going to tell them? Tell who? Your family? Yes. She made it to the bed and sat down heavily. Are you? Marcus moved further into the room, keeping his voice low. Why would they not know you can walk? Elena looked at him for a long moment, as if weighing whether to trust him. Because the accident wasn't an accident. The words hung in the air between them. Someone cut my brake lines, Elena continued. I know they did. I just had the car serviced the week before. Everything was fine. Then suddenly, on a road I've driven 1,000 times, the brakes just gone. Did you go to the police? And tell them what? That I suspect my own family tried to kill me but have no proof. Elena's laugh was bitter. My father's company is worth $30 million. He built it from nothing, and he's sick now. Early onset dementia. Everyone knows he only has a year, maybe 2, before he's completely gone. Marcus was beginning to understand. And when he dies, the company goes to his children, equal shares. Except my father never updated his will after I was born. My mother pushed him to, but he kept putting it off. So right now, everything goes to me. I'm his only biological child. Ethan's not. Ethan is my half-brother. My mother's son from her first marriage. She was a widow when she met my father. Ethan was 8 years old. Elena wrapped her arms around herself. He's worked for the company his whole adult life. He thinks of it as his. And my mother, she loves him more than she ever loved me. Marcus sat down slowly on the edge of a chair. So you think they tried to kill you? I know they did. And when the accident didn't work, when I survived, I realized something. Dead. I'm a problem. But incapacitated. Unable to participate in business decisions. That works just as well for them. Elena's eyes met his. So I decided to become what they needed me to be. Helpless. Broken. No threat at all. While you figure out how to prove what they did. While I stay alive long enough to inherit what's rightfully mine. Marcus rubbed his face with both hands. This was so far beyond what he'd signed up for. And your mother arranged this marriage because a husband can make medical decisions if I become incapacitated, can sign documents on my behalf. And you're perfect, desperate, no connections, no resources to fight back if they decide to use you. Elena's expression hardened. But they didn't count on you actually being a decent person, or me telling you the truth. Why did you? Marcus asked. Tell me, I mean. Elena was quiet for a moment. Because when you came back tonight, the first thing you did was check on me. Not because you had to, because you wanted to make sure I was okay. She looked away. No one's done that in 6 months. Marcus thought about Grace, about the $300,000 that had already been paid to the hospital, about how easily all of it could be taken away. If I tell anyone, he said slowly, they'll know you told me. They'll know you're faking. Yes. And if they find out, what happens to you? Elena's jaw tightened. I'd rather not find out. Marcus stood and walked to the door, his hand on the knob. Then he turned back. Can you walk well enough to exercise at night? Build your strength back up? Hope flickered across Elena's face. You're going to help me? I'm going to make sure Grace's surgery stays paid for, and I'm going to make sure you stay alive. Past that, I don't know. Marcus opened the door, checking the hallway. Empty. But yeah, I'm going to help you. Over the next 3 weeks, they fell into a routine. During the day, Marcus played the dutiful caregiver, helping Elena to the bathroom, pushing her wheelchair through the house, feeding her meals that she was perfectly capable of eating herself. At night, after the house went quiet, he'd slip into her room and they'd work. At first, Elena could barely manage 5 minutes of walking. Her legs shook and she had to grip his arm to stay upright. But she was determined. Every night, a little longer, a little steadier. Grace came home from the hospital and stayed with Mrs. Patterson during the days. Marcus visited every evening, bringing books and card games, watching her color return and her laughter come back. The surgery had worked. His daughter was going to live. But the more time Marcus spent in the Crawford house, the more wrong things he noticed. Ethan was there constantly, always watching. He'd appear in doorways without warning, ask questions about Elena's condition, review the daily schedule reports that Helen required Marcus to fill out. His eyes were sharp, calculating, like he was waiting for something. Helen herself was different behind closed doors. The polished veneer slipped sometimes, replaced by something colder. Marcus caught her once standing outside Elena's room late at night, just listening. She'd smiled when she saw him, offered some excuse about checking on her daughter, but the look in her eyes had made his skin crawl. And then there was Richard Crawford. Elena's father appeared one afternoon without warning, a thin man in his early 60s, with silver hair and eyes that seemed to look through people. He shook Marcus's hand with a grip that was still strong, said something about being glad Elena had proper care, then disappeared into his study. Marcus didn't see him again for days. "He's getting worse," Elena said one night, after 20 minutes of walking laps around her room. "Sometimes he doesn't remember who I am. Other times, he's completely lucid. The doctors say he has maybe 8 months left before he needs full-time care. And that's when the will becomes active." "Yes." Elena sat down on her bed, breathing hard. "Ethan's been pushing him to sign a new one, updated. But my father keeps refusing. Says his original will is fine." Marcus handed her a glass of water. "Does Ethan know what's in it?" "He knows I inherit. He knows it's not split equally. And he knows that once I have control, I can run the company however I want." Elena drank deeply. "Or sell it, which is what I'd probably do. Take the money and disappear somewhere they can't find me." "Would you?" Marcus asked. "Disappear?" Elena looked at him over the rim of the glass. "Wouldn't you?" Before Marcus could answer, they both heard it. Footsteps in the hallway. Heavy ones. Ethan's. Elena was back in her wheelchair in seconds, slumping naturally into the posture of someone who couldn't support her own weight. Marcus moved to the bookshelf, pulling down a random volume as if he'd just been reading aloud. The door opened. Ethan stood in the doorway, still dressed despite the late hour. His eyes moved from Marcus to Elena and back again. "Isn't it past her bedtime?" Ethan said. Marcus kept his voice even. "She couldn't sleep. Thought reading might help." "I see." Ethan's gaze lingered on Elena. "You look tired, sister. Perhaps Marcus should let you rest now." "I am tired," Elena said, her voice flat. "Good night, Marcus." Marcus left, feeling Ethan's eyes on his back. He heard the door close behind him, then Ethan's voice, too low to make out words. Elena's response was equally quiet. In his own room, Marcus lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling. This was bigger than he'd thought, more dangerous, and he was stuck in the middle of it, tied to this family by a contract and $300,000. His phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Patterson. Grace was asking when she could come stay with him. She missed him. Marcus typed back that it would be soon, just a little longer. Then he deleted the message and started over, this time with a simple heart emoji that Grace had taught him to use. Another text came through. Unknown number. Marcus almost ignored it, but something made him open it. The message was a photo. Elena's car after the accident, crumpled against a tree, the front end destroyed. And underneath, one word. Careful. Marcus deleted the text immediately. Then he got up and wedged a chair under his door handle. Across the hall, Elena lay in her bed, listening to footsteps move through the house below. She'd seen the way Ethan looked at Marcus tonight, suspicious, calculating. They were running out of time. She flexed her legs under the covers, feeling the muscles respond. Stronger now. Nearly ready. But ready for what, she wasn't entirely sure. The next morning, Marcus came downstairs to find Ethan in the kitchen, reviewing documents at the breakfast table. Helen stood at the counter, arranging fruit on a plate with surgical precision. "Good morning, Marcus," Helen said without turning around. "How did Elena sleep?" "Fine, as far as I know." Helen brought the fruit plate to the table. "Ethan tells me you were in her room quite late last night. Reading, was it?" Marcus felt the trap closing. "She asked me to." Helps her relax. Of course, Helen's smile didn't reach her eyes. Though perhaps daytime would be more appropriate for such activities. We wouldn't want to give the wrong impression. Ethan looked up from his papers. Mother's right. It's important to maintain proper boundaries. Elena is vulnerable. We need to ensure she's being cared for appropriately. The threat was barely veiled. Marcus poured himself coffee with steady hands, refusing to show the tension coiling in his gut. I understand, he said. Good. Ethan returned to his documents. By the way, we'll need you to sign some updated paperwork today. Just formalizing the care arrangement. Standard procedure. Marcus set down his coffee cup. What kind of paperwork? Medical power of attorney. In case Elena requires emergency treatment, and we can't reach my mother. Ethan's tone was casual, but his eyes were sharp. You're her husband, after all. It makes sense legally. Everything in Marcus wanted to refuse, but he couldn't, not without raising suspicion. Sure, whatever you need. Excellent. Helen handed him the fruit plate. Take this up to Elena, would you? And Marcus, we appreciate everything you're doing for our daughter. We truly do. Marcus carried the plate upstairs, his mind racing. Medical power of attorney meant they could use him to institutionalize Elena if they wanted. Or worse, authorize treatments she didn't need, sign away her rights while she was conveniently unable to object. He knocked on Elena's door and entered to find her already in her wheelchair, dressed and positioned by the window. The perfect picture of helpless routine. Morning, he said quietly, setting down the fruit. Elena didn't respond. Her attention was fixed on something outside. Marcus followed her gaze and saw a black sedan parked at the end of the driveway. Two men in suits stood beside it talking. Who are they? Marcus asked. Lawyers. Elena's voice was barely above a whisper. My father's lawyers. They only come when something important is happening. Marcus watched the men shake hands with someone out of view, probably Ethan. Documents were exchanged, papers signed. They're changing the will, Elena said. That's what this is. They finally convinced my father to do it. Can he even make that decision anymore? If his dementia, he has good days. And on those days, he's technically competent. Elena's hands gripped the armrests of her wheelchair. If they got him on a good day, with the right pressure, the right arguments, she didn't finish. She didn't have to. Marcus pulled out his phone and took several photos of the lawyers, the car, the license plate. Then he turned to Elena. We need to move faster, he said. Whatever you're planning, we need to do it now. Elena looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded, something hardening in her eyes. Tonight, she said. There's something I need to show you, something I hid before the accident. Proof of what they did. Where? My old apartment, downtown. I still have the key. Elena's gaze moved back to the window, where the lawyers were getting into their car. But we'll have to be careful. If they realize I'm gone, I'll figure it out, Marcus said. Just tell me where. That evening, Marcus claimed Elena needed fresh air, doctor's orders for mental health. Helen agreed reluctantly, instructing him to take the wheelchair-accessible van and be back before dark. They drove in silence through streets Marcus barely registered. Elena sat in the passenger seat, no longer bothering with the pretense. Her legs were curled under her, nervous energy radiating from every movement. It's stupid, she said suddenly, keeping evidence in an apartment instead of a safe deposit box or with a lawyer. But I didn't know who to trust, and I thought I had time. What kind of evidence? Marcus asked. Emails, security footage from my building's parking garage, and the mechanic's report from my car service. Elena's voice was tight. 3 days before the accident, I took my car in for a routine check. Everything was perfect. The mechanic documented it all, including photos of the brake lines. He even joked about how well I maintained it. Marcus turned down a street lined with apartment buildings. And after the accident? The police report said the brake lines were corroded, worn through from age and use, Impossible, but convenient. Elena pointed to a building ahead. There, 3rd floor, Unit 12. The apartment was small, furnished with the basics. Everything was covered in a thin layer of dust. 6 months of abandonment. Elena moved through the space like a ghost, touching surfaces she'd once known intimately. "It's in the bedroom," she said. Marcus followed her to a closet. Elena pushed aside hanging clothes and knelt, prying up a loose floorboard. Underneath was a fireproof document box. "I was going to take this to a lawyer the day after the accident," Elena said, pulling out the box. "I'd finally found one I thought I could trust. Had an appointment scheduled for 9 in the morning. She opened the lid. Instead, I woke up in a hospital with my mother, telling me I'd never walk again." Inside the box were file folders, a USB drive, and a smartphone. Elena powered on the phone, waiting for it to boot up. "These emails," she said, scrolling through. "Between Ethan and a man named Davies. Michael Davies. He's a mechanic, but not the kind you find in phone books. The kind you hire when you want something to look like an accident." Marcus read over her shoulder. The emails were careful, coded language about fixing a problem and ensuring smooth transitions. Nothing explicit, but damning in context. "And this," Elena plugged the USB drive into the phone using an adapter. "Security footage. Watch." The video was grainy, black and white, but clear enough. It showed the parking garage of Elena's building. A man, presumably Davies, approaching her car at 2 in the morning, 3 days before the accident. He worked underneath for 12 minutes, then left. "I didn't know about this until after," Elena said. "My building manager saved it for me. Said the police never asked for it, so he figured it might be important." "This is enough," Marcus said. "We take this to the police right now. They'll have to investigate." "Will they?" Elena's voice was hollow. "My family has lawyers on retainer who've kept bigger things quiet, and I'm just the paralyzed daughter with wild accusations. Who do you think they'll believe?" Marcus wanted to argue, but she was right. Money bought a lot of things, including reasonable doubt. "So what do we do?" he asked. Elena closed the box. "We wait. Until my father's will is read. Until I legally inherit. Then I have resources, power, enough to make sure they can't bury this." She looked up at him. "But I need time. And I need you to keep pretending nothing's changed." "How long?" "My father's lawyer said 8 months, maybe less." Elena's expression was grim. "Can you do this for 8 months?" Marcus thought about Grace, healthy now, laughing again. Thought about the life they'd have once this was over. Then he thought about Elena, trapped in this house with people who'd tried to kill her once already. "Yeah," he said, "I can do 8 months." They were driving back when Marcus's phone rang. "Mrs. Patterson," he answered on speaker. "Marcus." "Honey, I'm sorry to bother you, but Grace is asking about coming to see where you're staying. She wants to meet your wife." Mrs. Patterson sounded uncertain. "I told her maybe this weekend, if that's okay." Marcus glanced at Elena, who nodded slightly. "Yeah," Marcus said. "This weekend is fine." After he hung up, Elena was quiet for a long moment. "Your daughter," she finally said. "Grace, she doesn't know about the contract, does she? She knows I'm helping someone who needs care, that's all. She's going to ask why we're married, but don't act married." Marcus had thought about this, late at night when he couldn't sleep. "I'll tell her the truth, that sometimes people need help, and that's what family does." "We're not family," Elena said softly. "No," Marcus agreed, "but maybe we could be." The words hung between them, unexpected and strangely weighted. They pulled into the Crawford driveway just as the sun was setting. Ethan's car was in its usual spot, and lights were on throughout the house. Marcus helped Elena back into her wheelchair, both of them slipping into their roles seamlessly. But as they entered through the side door, Helen was waiting. Her expression was pleasant, but something in her eyes made Marcus's instinct scream. "Did you have a nice outing?" Helen asked. "Yes, thank you," Elena said in her flat, practiced tone. "Wonderful." Helen's gaze moved to Marcus. "Ethan would like to see you in his office. Just a few papers to sign. Won't take long." Marcus followed Ethan to a wood-paneled room filled with bookshelves and expensive furniture. The papers were already laid out on the desk. Medical power of attorney, exactly as threatened. "Just sign here, here, and here," Ethan said, offering an expensive pen. Marcus read the first paragraph, then the second. Standard legal language. Everything looked normal. But something felt wrong. "Can I take this to review?" Marcus asked. "Have my own lawyer look at it." Ethan's expression didn't change. "Do you have a lawyer, Marcus?" "No, but then it seems rather pointless, doesn't it?" Ethan's voice was pleasant, reasonable. "This is standard procedure. We're simply ensuring Elena's protected, unless you have some reason to be concerned." The trap was obvious. Refuse to sign, and they'd question why. Maybe dig deeper into his relationship with Elena. Maybe discover things they couldn't afford to have discovered. Marcus signed. "Excellent," Ethan said, gathering the papers. "One more thing. My mother mentioned you took Elena to her old apartment today." Marcus's blood went cold, but he kept his face neutral. "She wanted to get some personal items, photos, that sort of thing." "I see." Ethan tapped the papers into a neat stack. "In the future, please clear any deviations from her schedule with me first. We need to know where she is at all times, for her safety." "Of course." Marcus left the office feeling like he'd just walked through a minefield blindfolded. He found Elena back in her room, positioned by the window again, staring out at nothing. "They know," she said before he could speak. "Know what?" "That we went to my apartment. Ethan had someone following us." Elena's voice was completely flat. "There's a tracker on the van. I should have thought of that." Marcus sat down heavily. "Did they see what we took?" "I don't think so. But they know we went there, which means they're suspicious." Elena finally turned to look at him. "This is my fault. I put you in danger." "I put myself in danger," Marcus said. "And we knew the risks." "Did we?" Elena's laugh was bitter. "Because I'm starting to think we're both in over our heads." A knock on the door interrupted them. Helen entered without waiting for permission, carrying a tray with tea and biscuits. "I thought you might like a snack," she said brightly. "Marcus, why don't you give us a moment?" "Girl talk." Marcus left reluctantly, pulling the door mostly closed behind him. But he stayed in the hallway, just out of sight, listening. "Elena, darling," Helen's voice was soft, almost gentle. "I want you to know that everything I do is for your protection. You understand that, don't you?" "Yes, Mother." "This man, Marcus, he's been kind to you, hasn't he? He does his job. I'm glad. A clink of china. But you must remember, dear, he's paid to be here. Paid very well, in fact. His daughter's surgery cost quite a lot of money. Money we provided." Marcus's jaw clenched. "I understand," Elena said. "Do you? Because I'd hate for you to become confused about his motivations, or to share things with him that should remain private." Helen's voice dropped lower. "Family matters, for instance. Things that might give the wrong impression to outsiders." The threat was clear. Marcus felt his hands curl into fists. "I haven't said anything." Elena's voice was steady. "There's nothing to say." "Of course not. I'm simply making sure we understand each other." Helen stood, the chair scraping against the floor. "Rest well, darling. Tomorrow is a big day. Your father wants to have dinner with all of us. A family meal. Isn't that nice?" After Helen left, Marcus waited a full minute before returning to Elena's room. She was still sitting in her wheelchair, untouched tea growing cold beside her. "She knows," Elena whispered. "She knows we're working together. She has to. Maybe. But she doesn't have proof." Marcus pulled up a chair across from her. "And until she does, we keep going. We stick to the plan. The plan where we wait 8 months for my father to die, while his wife and son circle like vultures?" Elena's voice cracked. "Great plan. You have a better one?" Elena was quiet for a long time. Then, "No, I don't." That night, Marcus lay awake again, listening to the old house settle around him. Every creak sounded like footsteps. Every distant noise could be someone coming. His phone lit up with another text. Mrs. Patterson again. Grace wanted to know if she could bring her coloring books this weekend. She wanted to make pictures for Elena. Marcus smiled despite everything. At least one good thing had come from this mess. Grace was healthy. Whatever else happened, he'd done that. He'd saved his daughter. But lying there in the dark, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that he'd traded one life for another. And he wasn't sure yet whose life he'd actually saved. The will signing was scheduled for 10 o'clock. Marcus arrived exhausted and hollow. Helen met him at the door. "How is your daughter?" "She's having surgery tomorrow morning." "And you'll be there, of course." "I've already told Elena you'll be gone for a few days." Marcus found Elena in the formal dining room with documents spread before her. Ethan stood nearby. Richard Crawford sat at the head of the table, looking confused. "Marcus," Elena said. "Mother said you needed to speak with me." Marcus sat next to her. "The lawyers are here. The will needs to be finalized." "I know. And you think I should sign it?" "I think your family has your best interests at heart. This will provide for your care." Something flickered in Elena's eyes. Hurt, maybe disappointment, but her voice remained level. "I see. And this is your professional opinion?" "As someone who understands what it means to need help, to rely on family." "Yes." Marcus hated every word. Elena picked up the pen and positioned it over the signature line. "Wait," Richard said suddenly. Everyone turned. "This isn't right. This will. It's not what I wanted." Richard's voice was stronger than it had been in weeks. "You discussed it. You and Helen. But I never agreed. The original will stand. Elena inherits." "Father, please." Helen moved toward him. "You're not thinking clearly." "My mind is fine." Richard looked at his daughter. "I know what you're doing, Elena. I've known for months." Elena went very still. "Dad, you're not paralyzed. You're protecting yourself. From them. From the people who tried to kill you." Richard pulled documents from his jacket. Copies of the evidence Marcus had retrieved. "I know about the brake lines. About the payments to Davies. About everything. Elena sent these to me last night." The room exploded into noise. Ethan was shouting denials. Helen was trying to calm her husband. "I know about the brake lines. About everything," Richard continued. Ethan's face had gone white. "That's ridiculous. She's been manipulating you." "Marcus had nothing to do with this," Elena said, standing from her wheelchair. The room went silent. "This was me. All me. Because I'm not going to let you steal what my father built." Helen looked like she might faint. Richard was smiling. "There's my girl," he said softly. Ethan lunged toward Elena, but Marcus was faster, putting himself between them. Richard shouted for security. The police arrived within 20 minutes. The evidence was enough for an investigation. Ethan was arrested on suspicion of attempted murder. Helen on suspicion of conspiracy. Through it all, Richard stood by his daughter. "I'm sorry I couldn't protect you before, but I'm protecting you now." Later, Marcus found Elena on the back patio. She was standing without support, face turned toward the garden. "Your daughter," Elena said. "The surgery. It's still happening? Tomorrow morning. Your father intervened. Said it was the least he could do. Good. Elena was quiet. You should go be with her. Grace needs you. Marcus moved beside her. What about you? Do you need me? Elena finally looked at him, and for the first time she smiled. A real smile. I think I'm going to be okay now. Really okay. Yeah, I think you are. Marcus's phone buzzed. Mrs. Patterson telling him Grace was awake. Go, Elena said. I'll still be here when you get back, if you want to come back. The contract is fulfilled. You don't owe me anything. Marcus thought about contracts and obligations, then about the woman who'd trusted him with her life. Who'd fought back when it would have been easier to give in. I'll come back, not because of a contract, because I want to. Elena's smile widened. I'd like that. 6 months later, Marcus sat on the front steps of the Crawford house, which was just Elena's house now. Richard had moved to a smaller place with full-time care. Grace was inside helping Elena bake cookies. The company had been sold. The proceeds split between Elena and a charitable trust. Ethan was serving 7 years. Helen had taken a plea deal. Marcus still worked as a welder, but now by choice. He'd moved into the house with Grace after Elena asked them to stay, not as a caregiver or contract husband, but as something real. Dad, Grace called. Elena says the cookies are ready. Through the window, Marcus could see them laughing together, flower in their hair. It was nothing like the sterile house he'd first entered. It was better. It was home. Marcus pulled out Sarah's handkerchief, still there, still folded carefully. But for the first time, he didn't feel the need to grip it tight. He could let it rest gently, a memory instead of a lifeline. Coming, he called back, and went inside to join his family. Not the family he'd been born into or married into by contract, but the one he'd chosen, and the one that had chosen him back. The house settled around them, filled with laughter and the smell of burnt cookies and the sound of a little girl's elaborate story. Outside, the sun moved across the sky, marking the hours of an ordinary day. And for Marcus Hayes, who'd once thought ordinary was impossible, it was everything.